Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Trevor Goodall. In this fall semester, I did research on how rap music critiques racial capitalism in America. And to understand my motivation and drive behind this research process, I think it's best that you understand my history with music. And it goes without saying that that stems from my dad. And my dad was born in the 70s and grew up in the 80s, also known as the birth of reality rap and the Ronald Reagan era. And he was in a bunch of different ensembles, different rap groups. He even got signed to an independent label and toured until 1997, when of course I was born. And ever since then, he's basically passed the torch of having musically life within myself outside of religion. And it's easy to say that I breathe, eat, and sleep music to this day. On average, I go to about 4 to 5 concerts per year, and back in October, I went to my 5th concert. So I do a pretty good job of staying attached to music. And although this reflects like rap, I'm pretty sure you're all wondering, well, who's his favorite rapper? Well, we're gonna have to wait for that. To understand who my favorite rapper is, I think it goes without saying that you should understand who the pioneers were that set the trend and passed the torch on to him of critiquing and confronting racial capitalism through ungrabbable lyrics. And it goes without saying that that was the group from Compton, NWA, and the infamous rapper from Oakland, California, Tupac Shakur. They did a lot of great things in their music. For example, in NWA Straight Outta Compton, which was their freshman album, they did a lot of giving power to the negative connotations of pain with living in the ghetto and living through the racial capitalistic structure. For instance, they gave the black people a sense of empowerment and gave them a will to take ownership of freedom of speech. They did so through the song Express Yourself, which was monumental during the Rodney King beating in 1992. The infamous Tupac Shakur, he did some of the same things and talked about what NWA did in their music, but he also talked about more things. He talked about misogyny, and he used the song like Get Around, which is pretty much self-explanatory, to talk about misogyny, which was something that's common in rap music. He also talked about a stigma that a lot of young black males deal with in the racial capitalist structure, which is being raised in single parenting households. And he talked about that and analyzed that in a song called Dear Mama, in which he reflects on being raised by a strong, independent black mother that was a Black Panther Party movement member. Now let's pass down 10, 15, 20 years forward in the era of hip-hop, and there's a void. We have a lot of corny rappers, a lot of different music that are just focused on dance moves like the whip and stuff like that, but nothing with substance. And until 2010, when my favorite rapper, who I went to see in October, which I'm pretty sure you're waiting for, came on the scene in 2010 and basically continued this legacy of critiquing racial capitalism, which NWA and Tupac did. In an interview before he passed away in 1996, Tupac told the interviewer through video that he knew that he couldn't change the world because of who he was, but he knew musically that he would inspire somebody and would shock that mind that would change the world, and that was ultimately Kendrick Lamar. Now there's this debate as to whether Kendrick Lamar is or can save hip-hop, and I think he's doing a good job of doing so. Since 2010, he's had projects such as C4, the Kendrick Lamar EP, Overly Dedicated, Section 80, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, and Good Kid, Mad City, which was his freshman album. And it wasn't until March 15, 2015, that I went to Target to buy this album, which is his sophomore mainstream album, which is To Pimp a Butterfly. And what I love about this album so much is that I see so much poeticness and exquisiteness of continuing the legacy that NWA and Tupac did by critiquing racial capitalism. And he does so by talking about Lucy. Now I know you're all wondering, well, who is Lucy? Maybe it's the one and only I Love Lucy. Well, if you're thinking that, you're wrong. Actually, Lucy is a musical muse that he uses as a polysemy throughout the entire narrative of To Pimp a Butterfly. A polysemy is something that has 3 parts, and the 3 parts that he characterizes racial capitalism is by Uncle Sam, which symbolizes the government, the leader of Hollywood, which is the media, and Lucifer, which is the devil. Now, as we talk about Uncle Sam and the government, he uses the introductory song to the album called Wesley's Theory. Now, in this first song, he talks about what Wesley Snipes had to deal with and how he had to serve 3 years in prison for tax evasion. Wesley Snipes is a world-renowned African-American actor who basically practiced tax evasion protests And Kendrick Lamar gives his sentiments on this, saying that the media, and more so the government, sparks this idea in us that we can be entertainers and athletes, and that's the way to rise out of capitalistic structure, but won't provide resources and opportunities to become financially literate to uphold such wealth. Secondly, he talks about Uncle Sam through the song Institutionalized. Now, he doesn't just talk about how those in a racial capitalistic structure are institutionalized. He talks about how everyone is institutionalized, which is something I've never heard of. He basically says that the poor are plagued and institutionalized by classism, while the rich and wealthy are plagued and institutionalized by the fear of losing the almighty dollar, which is, as I said, nothing I've never heard of artists talk about. Secondly, he talks about the leader of Hollywood through the third song on the album, which is called King Kunta. And for those of you that do not know who Kunta Kinte is, he's a fictional slave character from Alex Haley's series known as Roots. And in that series, Kunta Kinte tries to flee for freedom and is caught back by a slave catcher and gets his leg cut off for doing so. And then basically, in this song, Kunta Kinte is a symbol of the African American people. And basically, Kendrick Lamar gives power and royalty back to this idea of being chained under the media, and basically gives us the name of being a king or a queen. The second song he talks about the leader of Hollywood or the media is through the song Mama. In this song he talks about his pilgrimage back to Africa, which inspired a majority of this album, and talks about how him coming back to Compton and reaching back to the kids sparked an idea in him that a lot of rappers don't think about, and how the media tries to portray this idea that we should lose our roots and morals that led us to this point, and he's done a good job in being living proof and keeping his morals intact and staying involved in the community and preaching these things that he learned in Africa to the kids in Compton. And lastly, he talks about Lucifer, which is the devil. He talks about that in 3 songs known as For Sale, You, and All Right. In For Sale, he talks about how not only do rappers somewhat sell their souls for fame, but they forget their morals, their spirituality. And spirituality is something that's been lost in the state of hip-hop for a while. In the song You, he gets very deep and vulnerable with his listeners. In that song, he talks about how leading up to his path and fame to this point, how he dealt with depression and different things back home in Compton, and how he had suicidal thoughts. But ultimately, in the 12th song on the album, which is All Right, he gives power to the Lord Jesus Christ, and basically says that at the end of the day, if God got us, then we gonna be all right. Now, a lot of people want to degrade rap music and say that it's not a form of art, and say that it's not hip hop, saying that Kendrick Lamar isn't even doing anything new or adding anything new to the table. I would somewhat agree with that. He does talk about misogyny, the social ills that come with living and coming from the ghetto, but what's different about Kendrick Lamar versus NWA and Tupac is he didn't grow up in a single parenting home, which pretty much influenced the way he was brought up in the capitalistic structure, and the way he's carrying the torch of talking about racial capitalism is completely different. He's adding poeticness back to it and restoring the order of art in hip hop. And this year, this album, To Be a Butterfly, had 11 nominations for Grammys, and I think it's because he critiqued racial capitalism, and it's been a major success, and he knows so as well. So I'm pretty sure he